Welcome in to Post Game Live on channel BSR after another Orioles win. Hey, I could get used to this. Tonight is June 23rd, 2015. The Orioles just beat the Boston Red Sox 6-4. I'm Jake English of the Bird's Eye View podcast, joined by Zach Wilt of Baltimore Sports Report. Zach, thanks a lot for joining us.
Oh, Jake, big fan of your work. It's a pleasure to be here, my friend.
You're the one. You're the one. So glad to see you. All right. So we saw some good things from the Orioles tonight. Got a little dicey at the end, but played a game that seemed like it had a lot of activity at the beginning and then kind of went into neutral and coasted all the way through the ninth inning.
Yeah, Orioles score 4 runs in the second inning. David Lowe goes deep with a 3-run blast, and you're thinking, man, this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be good. And kind of slowed down. It was a typical Red Sox game. You had Dustin Pedroia fouling off, 35 pitches and at bat. Ends up coming up with a big hit to scare the Orioles there in the ninth inning against Zach Britton. But Orioles hang on and find a way to win, which I feel like has been the trend here lately, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I was looking at today. This now puts them at 14-7 for the month of June. And I know that it's a little arbitrary to look at a calendar month for a baseball season, but it is a nice little sample size that we have going on. The month of June, after a listless April and May, saw the Orioles start out with a three games out of 4 loss to the Houston Astros, I think in Houston. And ever since then, they haven't looked back. They've won 5 straight series. And here they are getting the first win in a series which you would hope would be winnable games. And I think that's the difference. Even if the Orioles were playing a horrible team in Philadelphia, they did what they were supposed to do in beating a bad club. And if they're going to be one of the better clubs in the AL, the series against the Phillies and here this series against the Red Sox has got to be games where they pick up some wins.
Yeah, definitely. That's what's been important for them. And they've had the Red Sox number, too. Steve Molesky wrote a little bit about the history of these two teams, which I love looking at because they've just beat up on the Red Sox since 2012. 43-24 against the Red Sox since 2012, Jake.
You got that wrong. You got that wrong. It's not since 2012. It's since the last game of the 2011 series.
That's right. Never forget Bob Andino. Don't forget that. So 14 of their last 18. So, I know you mentioned June being kind of arbitrary, but they're definitely hot, winning 14 of the last 18. 3 straight and beating teams that they should beat. Took 3 out of 4 from Philly. Jumped all over Joe Kelly in this one, beating up on the Red Sox. So you'd like to see him come out and grab that series tomorrow. Taking 2 out of 3, maybe sweeping a series against the Red Sox because they're a bad team right now. Pick up those wins where you can get them.
Absolutely. And, I'll never stop talking about the dark period just because those 14 years were so awful. But doesn't it seem like the difference between now and then is in those years it would be losing 14 of 18 and we wouldn't bat an eye because it happens so frequently. Well, I tell you what, it's traditional here for the post-game show that we pick out our highlights and our lowlights of the game. From what you saw tonight, what would you pick out as your highlight for tonight?
I was really impressed with David Lowe. We're kind of going back and forth with some of our BSR team members there about what David Lowe's role is. Is David Lowe becoming a regular guy here? He blasted a 3-run home run in the second inning. Very impressive stuff from him. And when you can get that kind of production, the kind of production he's shown there in the number 9 spot of Buck Showalter's lineup, that's really impressive. So it was an early highlight for me, which I think is, like you said, the way this game went. Highlights early, slowing down a little bit late, but that's my big key highlight from this one.
I think that David Lowe may be producing just to spite me, and I'm willing to take that on the chin at this point if it means victories.
For me, being proven wrong. I've said that about Reimold too, because I've said many negative things about Nolan Reimold. Prove me wrong. I want to be wrong about these guys.
The crow is delicious.
Exactly.
For me, the highlight of the game actually is kind of on the other bookend of that. I'd like to see the tack-on runs. This was a game in which the Orioles didn't get the offense going and then just simply shut down, letting the other team back in the game. When the Red Sox started to put runs together, the Orioles started to tack them back on to keep their lead intact. So for me, the highlight of the game for me was seeing Manny Machado put an RBI double off the wall kind of later in the game. Again, a run that looked like it didn't matter, and yet it did by the 9th inning. And that's something that winning teams do and something that I appreciate seeing because, again, for May and April, we didn't see it.
How good has Manny Machado been atop the order too? Don't you get the feeling every time he steps into the box that he's gonna get on base? I mean, you are surprised when he doesn't get on base at this point. He's that hot.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. My favorite piece of modern technology may be Manny Machado's new knees. Let me ask you this, and this is something we talked about on the Bird's Eye View podcast this week. Do you think that Manny Machado, in some small ways, being wasted at the top of the lineup, if he's as hot as he is, do you think that we would be better off if he were lower in the lineup in a more run-producing zone?
That's a hot debate, and I enjoyed that conversation. I have seen Machado adjust his approach for the top of the order, and I know he's got the power to hit, 30 plus home runs this year, but he's also proven to be a more patient hitter since kind of taking over that role in coming weeks. So I don't know. I mean, it's so hard for me to say move a guy out there because it's working so well. You don't know what's going to happen if you plug him in a different spot. Maybe you see an adjustment period, kind of like we saw when he first went into the leadoff spot. So I'd say don't move him right now and just be happy with what he's doing atop the order. But I totally understand the opposite side of that argument.
All right, it's hard to do in a loss or in a victory rather, but we'll split hairs here. What was your low light for the game?
All right, so top of the third inning, I was a little bit frustrated with the base running here. Orioles have a 4-0 lead. Parmelee leads off against Joe Kelly with a double, one out from a Wieters ground out. Parmelee moves over to third. Chris Davis walks. So you've got first and third with one out, and then the Orioles do this weird, steal home type bit where Davis goes to second. And Parmelee tries to go home as Davis is going to second, so you get the throw down. Parmelee gets thrown out. Then Snyder walks, and he gets picked off of first, and that's the inning. So you went from first and third with one out to getting absolutely nothing there. And I think the Orioles tried to get a little too fancy there with the stealing home type bid, and then I don't know if Snyder was asleep at first base or not, but that was frustrating because it looked like an opportunity to really add, at least another run there, make it 5-0 in the third inning. I think that would have been demoralizing, maybe even more than that, and you could have buried the Red Sox early.
Sure, you get to from a position where an out will score a run to going back to get your glove. It's never a good situation.
Nah, it's frustrating.
All right, for me, the low light. I'm torn here. I'll go with one, and then we'll come back for the other. The low light for me was the fact that the collision between Sandoval and Napoli in the infield did not result in a drop ball. That was really the greatest disappointment of a great long time for me as far as baseball was concerned, because it's one of those beautiful moments that's like, it's like a double rainbow, and when you see it happen, it's just perfect, and it would have been even better if he had dropped the ball. So I was really hurt by that.
Yeah, you had a $95 million guy colliding with a $32 million guy. It was kind of Boston's offseason summarized there in one quick play.
It was worth watching. I'd watch a replay. All right, we've talked a little bit about highlights and lowlights. Let's talk about offense. You had mentioned the base running, which was a problem. Let's also talk about Jimmy Paredes stealing in the top of the ninth inning to end the inning, getting thrown out at second base. I don't know if that was a botched hit and run. I don't know if he simply ran on his own accord, but I didn't like it.
Yeah, I was scratching my head a little bit there too, and don't mean to be nitpicky picking up a 6-4 win in Boston, but things like that. The later half of this game kind of had me scratch my head, even down to Zach Britton in the ninth, which we can get to. I was a little confused by that too. I thought hit and run as well, but I don't know what happened there. I guess we'll have to wait and listen to the skipper.
You know that Buck won't let that go unaddressed. No. It was a mistake.
Exactly.
Our next, can we talk a little bit about Chris Parmelee? This guy came out gangbusters. He hit 3 home runs in his first 2 games, and I figured, all right, he'll cool off. And then he did a little bit, but he looked pretty good tonight. This guy can hit major league pitching.
Yeah, 2 for 4. We had the cycle watch going early because he had the double and the triple. So
it took care of the hard part first.
Exactly. Yeah, waiting to see. Come on, home run and a single. We can make that happen. But I'll take 2 for 4 any day. I've been really impressed with his approach at the plate. Another one of these guys who comes up, like you mentioned, you don't know how long it's going to last. Hopefully, last longer than you and I expect. But coming up and making an immediate impact in the lineup, and really impressed with what we've seen in this small sample from Parmelee so far.
Yeah, he hasn't been a liability in the field either. And it's interesting to me because I think at this point, at least offensively, the strongest outfield alignment that I think Showalter can put up there would be Reimold, Jones, and Parmalee. And I'm really hoping that Jones will get himself healthy and Nolan Reimold will get off of the milk carton and get back in the lineup, because I think that could be kind of a dynamic middle of the order there, and also a pretty strong defensive outfield.
Speaking of milk carton, did you see that Steve Pierce is alive and well? We got a Steve
We
Pierce
had
sighting
a
tonight.
wild Steve Pierce sighting, and it went just as you thought it might.
Yeah, it did, unfortunately. 0 for 1. I think he flew out the left field. Is
He
that
did.
what
He
happened?
did. And I'm sure when he
but
got
he's
back to
there.
the dugout, he was telling us that he just missed it. He just missed it.
So close. So close. Good to see that guy. I missed him. Where's he been?
Yeah, here's the thing, maybe I'll write about this at some point on Baltimore Sports Report, but I feel like Steve Pierce is having a pretty rough season, and my heart says that all he needs is some at bats to get himself going again, and my heart says that his multifaceted defensive skills make him a necessity on this team, and I'm starting to realize that it might just be my heart that says it.
I know. Isn't that sad? Such a big role, such a big impact on this club last season, and an awesome story too, obviously. And you really want him to be that guy again, but maybe last year was the outlier. Maybe that isn't what we should expect from Steve Pierce until the end of time.
You remember that game last year where Buck Showalter went to take Ubaldo Jimenez out of the game, and he said he made the mistake of looking in his eyes, and then he had to leave him in the game? I feel like every time I try to say bad things about Steve Pierce in my head, I just see his eyes from the post-game interviews where he was, in tears.
Yeah.
In the postseason. I just can't do it.
I know. It's hard, man. It's hard. I'm glad I'm not a GM. That's the type of stuff that separates GMs from people like me that get way too involved in the human emotion side of things.
Whoa! It is very easy from my armchair. I have no problem from where I stand.
Yeah, well, I'm tweeting on my iPhone. It's so much easier than making these decisions that Dan Duquette has to make.
All right. One last thing from me offensively before I turn it over, in case there's anything I missed. I love watching David Ortiz struggle. There are few purer joys, and to see David Ortiz end the game and see the disappointment on his face, it fuels me. So.
Gary was saying on the broadcast that John Farrell had mentioned, that he thinks that Ortiz is climbing out of this, that the bat speed has not been an issue this year, that it's just a matter of timing. I'm not a scout, I'm not a manager, but the bat looks slow from my couch, Jake. I mean, he doesn't look like the same guy. And, maybe that's, look at my hat, look at my sunglasses, my Kool-Aid, whatever. I know that I'm rooting against the Red Sox. But I don't know. I don't see it. I think this is a different guy in 2015 than we've seen the rest of his career. It catches up with you. I mean, guys, we see guys age. I think back to when the Orioles brought in Vlad Guerrero, and it looked like he was just a completely different guy than the rest of his career. Guys age 5 years in one offseason. It happens.
And I feel like we've seen David Ortiz slim down a little bit in the last couple of years of his career, and I really just wish we'd see a similar slimming down in David Ortiz's ego.
I don't think that's going to happen, though.
Did I miss anything from the offensive side of the ball?
I don't think so. I think you got it.
All right, let's talk a little bit about pitching. I'm going to skip over the defense because I already hit my highlight, which was the great collision of 2015, and start talking about Ubaldo Jimenez, who gave the team 5 innings. He started out looking great. He ended up striking out 8, and he got himself out of a number of jams with the strikeout, but he just threw too many pitches, and he ran out of gas and made the bullpen provide 4 innings. What did you see out of Ubaldo Jimenez tonight?
I saw him wiggle out of some jams. I really want to look at the pitch effects data because I feel like, on both sides of things, there were a lot of close pitches. I know the walks were there again for Jimenez, but he seemed to get the strikeout when he needed to get it. I know it was just 5 innings, but I felt pretty confident in his ability tonight watching him perform against the Red Sox. That was the thing, again, going back to some of Gary's comments that he continued to say was, the strikeout had been big for him with guys on. He was getting swing and miss from some guys in the Red Sox lineup. So, overall, I felt pretty good about what he gave the Orioles tonight.
Sure. 6 hits, 3 walks against 8 strikeouts, and the 3 earned runs over the 5 innings. And really, the first 4 innings I thought were pretty magnificent.
Oh
He
yeah.
got away with a lot and just torched it at the end. He was just nothing left, sweating bullets, and you could tell he was done.
Well, and how
Um,
nice is it too, Jake? After watching, the Orioles on Sunday and picking up a win, I know, but the Orioles score 4 runs in the second inning, and it's not a 1-2-3. But Jimenez comes out, gets a ground out, gives up a single to Pablo, gets a strikeout on Napoli, and look at that, it's still 4-0 going into the next inning. Amazing how that works.
Yeah, it'd be awfully nice if we didn't have to praise a 5 inning outing because we had seen 2 4-out outings from
Yeah,
two starting pitchers this week.
I know.
Anyway, the short start from Ubaldo Jimenez did make the opportunity for the bullpen. We got Brad Brock for an inning, Chaz Rowe for an inning, Darren O'Day, despite the fact that he had no opportunity whatsoever to hit Jose Bautista, and an inning from Zach Britton. I'm going to skip over Brad Brock only because he gave us exactly what he's been giving us all season, which is just a quiet inning, 2 strikeouts with a walk and a hit. But Chaz Rowe is another guy that you assumed was going to be a flash in the pan, and I certainly was guilty of this, but he might be legitimate.
I know. I continue to wait for that outing where he serves it up, but his stuff looks good, man. There's a lot of movement. He's looked really solid, and I am slowly building up that confidence when that bad haircut comes running out of the bullpen and out to the mound. So, yeah, he looked good again tonight. A lot of movement, like I mentioned, a lot of swing and miss there. So really impressed again with what he's given the Orioles so far.
Chaz Rowe's hair looks like the hair that belongs to a guy who goes by the name Chaz. I mean, that's all you can really say about it, and I'm not even sure what that does. I don't know if you've seen. I'm sure you must have seen it. There is a lot going on the internet right now, especially on Twitter, with that slider from Chaz Rowe from this week, which was just. I mean, it was black magic. There's no other way to describe what moved. The best part of that short video clip, the Vine, wherever you saw it, was that the look of surprise on the batter's face was fine. The look of surprise on the face of the umpire was fine, but the catcher looked surprised that he had caught whatever that was that came out of it. So Chaz Rowe's definitely been a pleasant surprise. Also surprising, I'd like to talk a little bit about Zach Britton because you alluded to it earlier, and I thought it was just my imagination. It seems like Zach Britton has been particularly imperfect of late.
He's wiggling out of these jams, but he is scaring me a little bit. And I kind of go back to Philly, June 17th. I think it was game 2 or game 3 against Philly, the first game at Citizens Bank Park, where gave up the hit, gave up a walk, ends up wiggling out of it, getting the save. Then he comes in 3 days later against the Blue Jays, picks up another save, but 3 hits, gives up a run. Had a good outing on the 21st against the Jays. 1 inning, no hits, strikeout there. But similar to what we saw in the earlier 2 tonight, where runner comes around to score, gives up a hit, gives up a walk. You wonder if that tight strike zone is impacting him, or you wonder if he's got a little bit more hittable stuff the past couple outings.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of it. I don't want to freak out, but I will say that I spent far too much of my time convincing myself that Jim Johnson was better than he was, just because I liked him so darn much. And I would hate to get into a situation where we get into a tightrope walking event with Zach Britton. Clearly, he can be effective. He can clearly be effective with guys on. He's shown that. You think back to the game 2 or game 3 of the ALDS last year when he gave up the double in the 9th inning in that tight game. This kind of stuff doesn't phase him. I'll tell you what, it phases me.
Me too, man. Me too. The scariest thing, the 2 scary stats that you want to see, trend in the right direction here are walks and strikeouts, and that's been the difference, I think, for me. And I did the Jim Johnson thing too, because they were both ground ball guys, and I was worried. We knew what happened to JJ when his stuff was a little bit flat, a little more hittable. The sinker was sinking in the bottom part of the strike zone and not down near a guy's ankles. Gives up some big hits, but So far, well, at least, early on in the season, Britain had shown a little bit more swing and miss than even his stuff last year. But I think that's kind of changed here over the past, 4 or 5 outings. Walking a little bit more, maybe he's up in the zone a little bit. So would like to see him refine that, because, if he was relying on ground ball outs, that's a scary way to close out games.
Absolutely. Well, the Orioles did take the win, a 6-4 victory. Again, tomorrow they can go out and look for the series win, and which would be their 6th in a row, as I mentioned earlier. With the way the rest of the AL East shook out tonight, the Orioles moved back into 3rd place, which I know is critically important here in late June. But they are 2.5 games back of the surprising Tampa Bay Rays, and they're only a single game out of the wild card. They're actually the next team out. So it's interesting to see where Baltimore has positioned itself in the playoff race, if you can call it that, here in June. With the Rays and the Blue Jays playing each other, and as heated as the Blue Jays and Orioles have been of late, I can't even decide who I want to win in that series.
That's a tough one, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's tough. But Chris Archer going out and doing his thing again tonight. That's he's scary. I think I'm more scared of the Rays, honestly. Good pitching. Good pitching. Yeah. I think the Orioles prove what they can do against the Blue Jays over the weekend. They can hit them well, and as long as their pitching can hold the Blue Jays to, I don't know, halfway decent amount of runs, I think they're going to end up beating them. So,
well, the Blue Jays' Achilles heel is going to continue to be their bullpen, and the Orioles have shown that they can handle a weak bullpen. The Achilles heel for the Rays is clearly their offense. It's just that the Orioles don't match up against that. A good starting pitcher can and has shut this offense down as great as it has been at times. So it's definitely we'd rather play the Jays because we're very similar teams, and let's just say we know where the weaknesses lie.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move to the bottom line takeaway for tonight's game. What is your bottom line takeaway?
It's just a bad team that the Orioles are playing. I mean, the Red Sox, every time I watch the Red Sox, I think, Dustin Pedroia is trying really hard. We talked about Ortiz pretty extensively. He went 0 for 4. Did draw a walk and had 2 strikeouts. He just doesn't look like the same guy. Hanley got a couple hits. We saw a golden sombrero from Mike Napoli, who was hitting under 200. John Farrell got ejected for, basically wanting to get ejected there. I mean, it
couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
It's a sad team playing the Red Sox. They are just a bad team right now. So bottom line takeaway, beat up on these guys, win 2 more, and get out of Fenway with 3 wins.
My bottom line takeaway for this game, and I think the last couple games, is it's really nice to not miss the best player on your team. We're putting together wins here.
Nice.
The Orioles are putting together impressive wins without Adam Jones, and even when he's in the lineup, he's limited to being the DH. So the discussion as to whether or not he should have been put on the DL or whether he will be put on the DL is kind of it's academic at this point, because the Orioles are getting it done without him. I mean, for goodness sakes, David Lowe hit a 3-run home run in his stead tonight, which, turned out to be the difference in the game. So my bottom line takeaway is it's awfully nice to have the cushion, to have the room, the margin of error that I think we lacked earlier in the season without our best player.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good point. Yeah, we forgot all about Adam Jones tonight. It was nice to be able to forget about Adam Jones. Let him rest. And let these guys, put up 6 more tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right, that's probably going to do it for us here on Post Game Live on Channel BSR. Zach, is there anything for Baltimore Sports Report or the BSR podcast that you want to plug?
Recording a new episode tomorrow, so look for that over on Baltimore Sports Report, Stitcher, iTunes, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts.
I like to listen to your podcast at work.
Oh, all right. Well, good. You can listen at work.
All right. Well, for Zach Wilt, I'm Jake English. Birds win 6-4. Come on back on Thursday. Hopefully we'll be treated to another win. We'll talk to you then. Thanks a lot.